Greetings, this is Mr. Nobody with part 3 on what I call the MAGA Republican and what it's all about. Well, what really defines it? The phrase right there has it. Make America great again. We were great, we've lost that greatness. We've got to regain that greatness. This here defines the most fundamental difference between the MAGA Republican and any other kind of Republican you can think of. And we'll go into different kinds as we develop in further series. But the MAGA Republican does something the others don't do. He fixes things. Democrats break things. Every time they do something, they just make something worse. And then they do something else, and that makes stuff worse. And they do something else, and that makes stuff worse. Democrats have been in control so much. You look at the homeless in the cities, you look at the crime rates in the cities, you look at all the stuff that, the total absence of any protection at the southern border. You look at all the massive amount of, fentanyl and other illegal drugs in this country, and then you look at the coercive loss of freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of, the only press that seems to be free is the press that tells the same stupid party line. That's all propaganda. Real press, we can say stuff, and I'm saying stuff here. I wonder how long before these videos get pulled, but at least until they do, it's here. And even when it's not, I can always reload it up somewhere else once that should ever happen. So we'll be here. We'll be here one way or another. So we saw those good things we had just melt away, and all the new problems just come along. They're always going around breaking things. And now we've been recently finding out, let me illustrate something. I'm going to use the assassination of President Kennedy. Now, the basic, obvious supposed story, some guy named Lee Harvey Oswald, just woke up one fine sunny day and said, I don't like President Kennedy. I think I'll go shoot him today. And he just goes and does it. Now, we know there's a whole lot more to this whole story, way more. I'm acknowledging the fact of all that. Were there other shooters? Were there this? Were there that? I don't know. Probably. But I don't know. For the sake of this argument, for this illustration I'm going to make, I'm going to pretend that he just did this all by himself. That one day he just decided to, kill a president and got up in that roof there, that building, and he put a gun and bang, 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 and suddenly we don't have a great president is done. A great nation must move on, and all the rest of all that. Now, obviously, he's undeniably guilty of murder in a very serious degree. Obviously, also, though, is that, let's say there were people behind him, people who gave him the guns, who gave him access to that room of the building, people who made it clear that he knew exactly when, where, how the president would be riding in what kind of vehicle down a certain street, and other kind of people who paid him to do this, or brainwashed him to do this, or persuaded him, or threatened his family to do it, or else, or whatever. Well, you know what? That doesn't really much lessen his guilt. He still is a murderer. But what it does do is it brings in the fact that others are guilty too. Now, fast forward to today. We all saw over the last couple of years, and some of this is still going on, the big tech companies have literally conspired to suppress free speech. They conspired, pure and simple. That's what they did. And Twitter did this, and Facebook did this. I don't know. Google was involved in this somehow that I don't really quite understand, and even Amazon, which I really don't understand, but they were all involved in one way or another. All these big tech companies, and there's probably somebody else I'm leaving out. They shouldn't be left out, but I don't know the names of Apple, maybe, I don't know. But all these different big companies, and they all just seem to agree to do this terrible, in fact, criminal thing. And they all say, but we're these private companies, we can do whatever the heck we darn well please. So there. Section 230, whatever, said we could do whatever we want. We can have on or not have on whoever we want. You know? Well, and we blamed them. And rightly so. They did wrong. Criminally wrong. Prosecutably criminal wrong. Pure and simple. And now we're finding out, well, it wasn't on their own initiative. Somebody was making them do it. That doesn't excuse them. It just means we got additional perpetrators of that massive crime who are also guilty. And that needs to be addressed, and that needs to be taken care of. And there's definitely a bunch of folks who need some jail time over this, at least. So, we got to do some serious, restoration. So what do? The non-MAGA Republican is at heart a conservative. Hey, leave the status quo alone, whatever that may be. The Democrat breaks something because that's what they do. Then a conservative, non-MAGA Republican like, George Bush, even the elder and certainly more the younger, just comes in and, well, it's there. I'm going to leave it there. I don't care. Shit, I might even fight to keep it there, keep that damage there. But I'm certainly not going to do anything to fix it. That is no longer what's called for. We need to restore. We need to bring back. There is a term for that, and we could call it reactionary. We're going back. But we're going back to something that works after having ventured into a direction that has not worked. Certainly not for all the original individual Americans. It's not working for the Americans, the ordinary Americans. I guess you could, does socialism work? Does communism work? Well, I guess it depends on the standpoint. If you're going to try to have a society that runs responsibly and, brings prosperity and happiness to its population, categorically not. It doesn't. It just doesn't. But if you want to take it from the standpoint of what it does, it gives some selfish, disgusting, despotic leader all the power that he can do whatever he wants and kill whoever he wants and nobody can stop him. I guess you could call those things very successful. So, but we need the people's success. So that was the great thing about America, was the people's success. It could happen before, it could happen again. And it even happened in the lifetimes of everybody now, pretty much almost everybody now living, other than very small children, during the time of Trump. So we got a glimpse of what can be, what should be, what, by every will of the American people must be again. So how do we do that? We restore stuff. I kind of see it as this. That wasn't such a problem back in the days of Reagan. It's sort of like the old adage of, closing the barn door after the horse got away. Conservatives close the barn door, but they're not interested in returning the horse to the barn. The horse escaped long ago, and I'll just close the barn door, even though the horse isn't in there anymore. But I closed the barn door. Didn't I do a good thing? I guess if there's another horse still in there, okay, I'll give you that. But, the other horse or horses that got away, need to be brought back. That's reactionary. That's what the MAGA Republican is all about. We fix things. Democrats break things. The conservative, non-MAGA Republicans, I guess you could say they're like preservers. Almost like a Hindu mythology, and I'm using mythology in the sense of, just their beliefs. Shiva, the destroyer. Well, Democrats, okay. Vishnu, the preserver, okay, well, there's our conservative, and then Brahma, the creator. That's the MAGA Republicans. We're creating the America that the founding fathers intended. Recreating it, because they did create it. And then things actually, despite a lot of interesting conflicts, more or less actually held up to something of a degree until recent years. The last couple of years, it's just and just seeing all this stuff, and it's like they almost don't care who knows what they're doing and who's doing what. Like they kind of know it's too late. It's checkmate. I sometimes wonder about that, but maybe it isn't, and that's the only hope left. MAGA Republicans really are the only hope for America, because things need to be fixed. The horse needs to be returned to the barn. Then we can close the door. Once the horses are back in the barn again, we can let the conservatives come back and keep the door closed, and that's fine. Conservatives have their uses, and I think we need to be fair and honest in that way. Okay? We just need to be fair and honest. They can be useful for some things. Let them do those useful things. But where they're not useful, basically, we just kind of have to push them aside and say, you're not in charge here. We are. And we're going to fix this thing. And once that's done and fixed, if you want to help preserve what we fixed, by all means, come and join us and help us preserve what we fixed. And that would be our message to the non-MAGA Republicans. We're not fighting you. We're trying to repair the things that, that the other side has been breaking over the past, maybe 30 years. We're going to fix those things. You see, in Reagan era, there wasn't enough really that needed much fixing. So the conservative was fine. Maybe the occasional person who wanted to fix something could, maybe tweak a little detail here or there, but on the whole, things were well enough that they were fine. There was no major reversals. You had a conservative, the 1990s, you had Clinton in the Oval Office, you had a Republican Congress, both houses, and they were conservative in their spending, and we actually were balancing our budget. And that's kind of neat. We were meeting our obligations and balancing the budget at the same time. I think that's impressive. I think that's possible again. Although now it's going to be a much further way off. I don't know if we'll ever deal with the bogus debts we have now, other than just to accept we have inflated our currency. We have inflated it. And there's really no way back. Not anymore. That's all. So that is the essence of the MAGA Republic. You see, the Democrat breaks stuff. The conservative non-MAGA Republican you can give him credit for trying to keep things from being broken, mostly anyway. Sometimes they give in to that, but because you got a lot of non-MAGA Republicans of different kinds, and some of them will let further arms squeak by. They're not all conservatives, sad to say, but let's just say the majority of Republicans, all Republicans, are at least conservative and are not going to want to let things be damaged. And I will credit them with that much. But there are things now, a lot of things, that need to be fixed. That's where the MAGA Republican comes in. We need to fix things, and that's what we're here to do.